Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming Pioneer Open. I'm Tandy, joined by Bomad. Say hi, Bomad.
Hi, Matt.
We got 5 rounds in the books, 2 rounds of Swiss left before we're making our cut to top 8 in those elimination rounds, as our players will be playing for their fair share of $2,000 in cash and prizes. We have a nice little matchup to show you on camera this round. Why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown of what and who we'll be seeing?
So, table one, one of our guests, Corey Baumeister, playing Mono Green Devotion, of course, is going to be playing against Jonathan Fessemeyer on Blue White Control. So,
Ooh, not the best matchup for old Mono Green Devotion, eh?
yeah, but it is definitely one with a lot of maneuvering. We're going to be settling in for a long one against this control deck that has plenty of tools to deal with Mono Green's threats.
All right, well, let's go and head on down to the feature match area and let those players begin when they're ready. I don't want them waiting on us. I always want to be waiting on them. We don't like to inconvenience our players. We don't like to make their lives any harder than it has to be. It's already a stressful, long day of Magic the Gathering. All right, looks like our Azorius control player is going to be taking a mulligan to at least 6 cards. And Corey going to pound some Gatorade as he prepares to win his winning in. He lost the winning in yesterday against old Mason Clark. And Mason actually drawing this round at 5-0. Going to be 5-0-1 with
Yeah.
Dylan Ham, local hero. Dylan
Right.
Ham, and both of them looking pretty to make top 8 with another draw next round, and probably even in with a loss next round if they're forced to play. So,
Right.
congrats
For
to both of
example,
them.
Jonathan Fessemeyer at 5-0, not able to draw with this pair down into Corey at 4-1.
Right. All right. So, Fessermeyer gonna be on a mulligan to 6 here. Let's see if the 6 card hand is better than the 7. We'll see who's on the play in just a moment. Corey's hand, taking a look. He's keeping it close to the vest. Hard to tell. See a couple lands. Karn the Great Creator hiding in there. Maybe a Pelucranos. I see an elf as well. That's what I was looking for, and we found it. All right.
Jonathan's hand, we have plenty of lands, putting one to the bottom and keeping this hand. Wandering Emperor and Teferi Hero of Dominaria. We'll see if he has any early interaction, but he does get to be on the play.
All right. Turn 1 Hollow Fountain is the play for Fessemeyer, and that is Azorius control deck. A common play tapped. Here's turn 1 Elvish Mystic, another common play for Mono Green Devotion. A tap Prairie Stream from Fessemeyer. A slow start is going to allow Corey to resolve a 2-drop here or a 3-drop, depending on how he wants to use this mana. Here's a Forest. What's the play? Corey ponders his decisions.
Corey now knows exactly what he's up against with this irrigated farmland, and is really going to start thinking about how exactly he wants to posture, what order he wants to deploy these threats, when he knows some of them could get easily answered.
All right, decides to play Pelucranos. Fessemeyer plays lane number 3 and passes back. Likely has something like Supreme Verdict. Corey has to be aware of that. Doesn't want to play another creature this turn, more than likely. We'll see if Fessemeyer has the answers or has the sweeper next turn.
Right. If Fessemeyer is so lucky as to have Supreme Verdict, Pelucranos is actually one of the threats that is weakest into Supreme Verdict. If this 3-drop was an Old Growth Troll instead, Corey would be getting some mana and some devotion back. But instead, Pelucranos could just be easily swept up if there is a verdict in Jonathan's hand.
We see Fessemeyer doing his best two-face impression, half his face cut off. Sorry, I just like making my director laugh is all. Corey's in the tank, doing his best scuba diver impression.
There we go. Alright, 4 mana. We are going to start off with an attack. You know, this is another plan Mono Green can sometimes try against Blue White Control. Just slip one threat underneath, but it's hard to imagine that Jonathan's going to be unprepared for this Blue Chronos.
All right, but Karn the Great Creator looks like it's going to resolve. And Corey going to go ahead and minus and get a card off of it. And we'll see if Fessemeyer has a big answer next turn. Corey going to go for a land, expecting the Supreme Verdict, wanting to hit the 4th land drop, likely to play some sort of 4 or 5 drop next turn. Back Fessemeyer's way. Land number 4. Does he have the Supreme Verdict to clean up the Elf and the Pelucranos? That would be ideal for him. If it's just Wandering Emperor, ooh, it's just Wandering Emperor. Could have main phase it to kill the Pelucranos, but doesn't want to be able to be attacked by the Elf. We'll see what Corey wants to do this turn.
Now Corey has plenty of options with this Karn, including just going up. The cards you get off Karn are super important, especially in a matchup like this. And I'm interested to see whether Corey wants to commit to a decision this turn or later. But first, Cavalier of Thorns. Will it be allowed by the control deck?
It is. No play from Jonathan Fessemeyer. And looks like Corey does a big old whiskey on the Cavalier. So no land for him. Looking for a Nykthos. Looking for just anything. And misses. Karn the Great Creator already got the Darksteel Citadel to guarantee the 5th land drop. He's done his job. We can minus again and go get something to play next turn. But without more information on what you want to go get, I kind of like a little tick up.
Right, me too. Playing with Karn is one of the harder parts of mono green. You really have to know know both the matchup and what it seems like your opponent might have in hand to try to line your threats up perfectly out of Karn's sideboard.
Well, Swiss Army Man has so many abilities.
Yeah.
Oh, Corey figures it out too. Ticks up. Agrees with the mono green master in the booth with me.
And Corey actually passing the turn here, very worried about this exact card, the Wandering Emperor, decides not to expose Pelucanos Reborn to it.
Interesting. Very smart play by Corey to play around the Wandering Emperor. I actually thought Fezemeyer might not even play it because playing it now leaves it somewhat vulnerable to attacks next turn, but maybe just wants to build up a bit of defense and get something like Teferi here of Dominaria down this turn with a couple blockers.
Right, that's a great mode to use the Wandering Emperor in. Just spitting out 2 Samurai very quickly. The Teferi, ooh, but a tap land from Jonathan, it means neither of the Teferis in his hand can come down this turn.
Brutal. Those tap lands really biting him, and these Azorius control decks, I've long since said that I thought their mana bases needed a complete rework and overhaul. Now that we have pathways, I know that it's hard to play Absorb and Supreme Verdict and these heavy colored pip cards without playing a bunch of lands that tap for 2 mana, but I think Hingegate Pathway is the future for these decks, and turns out
Right.
playing a bunch of irrigated farmlands comes with some serious consequences.
Exactly. When you just see the second Samurai out of this Wandering Emperor, and a pass back to Corey.
Okay, might have a backup Wandering Emperor, could play it and eat one of these creatures if they decide to attack. The Karn can go get some sort of big artifact out of the sideboard here. We'll see if Fezemeyer has an answer. And what Corey wants to go get, maybe something like Eska's Chariot. I don't think he has access to Godpharaoh statue, but that would be a heck of a card to get here. Maybe old Mason Esports Clark is right.
Yeah, the Godpharaoh statue, Jonathan has 5 lands to play, but it would still restrict his options. Going to be a Sky Sovereign instead. Corey going to try to take out either a Samurai or this Wandering Emperor and put the pressure on with a threat that cannot be destroyed by Supreme Verdict.
Alright, so even if a sweeper does come next turn, the Karn can plus on that Sky Sovereign and have it attack. I kind of want Corey to hit a Samurai token. I just have a feeling there's another Wandering Emperor in hand.
Well, that's the that might be Corey might be a level ahead of you there. If there's another Wandering Emperor, Corey doesn't want to commit any attacks into getting this one off the board, so is instead just going to use the boat to take care of this one Wandering Emperor and leave these creatures untapped for another turn.
Alright, end of turn we got
March of Otherworldly Light, pitching one of these redundant Teferis to get a Cavalier of Thorns off the battlefield.
Okay, it's gone. It's exiled forever. We're going to go back Fessemeyer's way. Draw for turn. We can play Teferi Hero. We have Island as the draw. I didn't see the other card in hand. But Teferi seems like a pretty smart play. But what do you target? Do you minus? Do you plus? Looks like he has a Supreme Verdict in hand now too, huh?
Exactly. These Samurai no longer very good protection for Teferi. If it was to either plus or minus, the Sky Sovereign does not care about Samurai one bit. And we're going to think about what to do with it. Looks like we're putting something back in Corey's library and choosing the target right now.
Interesting. Corey did find the 5th land. Another layer of the Hydra. Those creature lands could spell extra pressure for him later on. But for now, it's just a hungry for mana. And we're going to block one. Karn's down. I'm going to go back Corey's way. Board mostly cleared up.
Right, Teferi taking care of that Sky Sovereign is pretty big. Ignores a lot of the interaction that Jonathan has available.
And here's a big play from Corey B. He's going to fire off, looks like a Storm the Festival here. He's guaranteed to at least hit Sky Sovereign if that's something he wants.
Right.
And it can get a lot worse than that. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Looks at the top 5. Can put permanents into play with mana value 5 or less. Sky Sovereign meets that criteria. 3 damage coming. Probably going to target the Samurai, and then Plukerna's probably going to knock off the Teferi. We'll see what he wants to do.
Right.
Bang.
And we saw also it looked like Corey did have some elves as options for the second Storm the Festival hit, but is prioritizing making these land drops and actually had another elf to deploy from hand off that untapped forest.
All right, so Fezemeyer does have Verdict in hand. It's probably going to be cast this turn. His last card, it looks like Field of Ruin. Going to hold that up at some point to target Lair of the Hydra probably, but now we're on empty.
Right, and these lairs actually, if Corey wants to really amplify the pressure, could crew the Sky Sovereign, but if Corey has a Storm, he's set up to jam another one on this turn.
Yeah,
there it
that's
is.
what he's going to do. Looking for one of those big creatures. Finds a Karn the Great Creator at the very least, Old Growth Troll at the very least. So we got a lot of options. Corey going to take a look at his hand, sculpt his next few turns, figuring out what the best 2 cards to pick here off the Storm to Festival.
And a Cavalier of Thorns.
Yeah, nice. All right, so Cure Cavalier, I love it.
The draw engine is online. Corey's going to draw a card right away off this Cavalier thanks to the Kiora trigger.
And we haven't played a land yet. Still no Nykthos. Finds a forest, though. These go to the graveyard, and multiple Storm Festivals in the graveyard, and we're pushing towards being able to cast them the hard way with 10 real mana.
Right.
And now we can crew the Sky Sovereign and jam for 6.
Yeah, Sky Sovereign just going to be some excellent pressure here against Jonathan. Making extra mana with Kiora to get this Wolf Willow Haven down. And that Haven is going to put Corey at exactly 10 mana next turn thanks to Kiora.
All right, so Fezemeyer down to 10 life. We have potential lethal coming next turn. Let's see if Fezemeyer has any answers. Counting up 10, has a handful of gas. Both of this Old Growth Troll can fire up the lair and use that to crew Sky Sovereign, but Jonathan Fezemeyer could break it up with Field of Ruin. So got to play around that a little.
Right. These lairs are, some point later in the game, they could throw on some pressure. But right now, Corey has plenty of spells to cast.
Has another Storm the Festival in hand. This powerful sorcery from the new Innistrad. I believe it was Crimson Vow, but it could have been the one before that.
I'm going to say it was Midnight Hunt.
Yeah, Midnight Hunt because of the wolves, and yeah, you get it.
Yeah.
The themes. Right. Here's an Absorb, a big pickup, and that's going to be a bit tough for Corey to deal with here, but he's still got a whole lot going on. Kiora gonna make some mana.
All right, just making it clear exactly how much mana Corey's gonna have available.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, up to 7 if he so chooses. Could jam a Storm the Festival. That's gonna be his line.
Okay, and looking for a creature here to crew the Sky Sovereign. Karn can also plus on it. We're gonna hit Cavalier of Thorns and Old Growth Troll. We're going to draw 2 cards off Kiora. Then we're going to go looking for a Nykthos off of the Cavalier of Thorns. And there it is.
First hit.
Can't activate it this turn necessarily. We've already used the Kiora and we're mostly tapped out. But we get to crew. We get to smash for 11, putting Fezemeyer down to 2 life with just so much pressure in play.
Right. And even if Jonathan was able to find, for example, a Farewell to get these creatures cleanly off the battlefield and the Sky Sovereign, at that point, the lairs are completely unprotected against.
All right, looks like he decides to go busting up the Nykthos instead of the lairs. That means the sweeper is no longer a viable option. So I don't think there's any real out for Fezemeyer. No
Right.
discontinuities in the deck. He's not playing the Lotus Field version. Draw for turn. It's Glacial Fortress. Going to pack it in. Corey B takes game number 1 in this winning, and he had our Pioneer Open. Mono Green Devotion looking as good as ever. I know Mason Clark is also playing Mono Green Devotion. His mortal lock for top 8. Started 5-0 and drew with local hero Dylan Ham this round.
All right, and Corey, Mono Green Sideboarding, this is one of the matchups where you can actually make a lot of changes. Things like Sky Sovereign, maybe even Haywire Might as a cheap card to deal with. Temporary Lockdown is a great tool that the blue-white decks sometimes have. Really, Corey can look at almost every card in his sideboard, including Essica's Chariot, just to name another. There's a lot of decision points for Corey here. But moving on to the sideboard for Jonathan Fesmeyer's blue-white control deck, we're going to start off with 1 Hullbreaker Horror, 1 Dovin's Veto, 1 Elspeth Sun's Champion, 1 Lyra Dawnbringer, 1 Fateful Absence, 1 Temporary Lockdown, 2 Mystical Dispute, 2 Divine Smite, 2 Rest in Peace, and 3 Legion Angel.
All right, I have a weird question for you.
Yeah.
As a blue-white control player, would you board in Rest in Peace against Mono Green Devotion? Because it seems like it shuts down Storming the Festival sometimes, and it shuts down Old Growth Troll sometimes, and it shuts down a couple of other little things. What do you think about it?
Right. I think devoting as many of your cards to actual interaction as possible is way more important in this matchup. At this point in the amount of sets that have come out the past few years, the blue-white control deck has access to plenty of sweepers that exile creatures and therefore don't care about Old Growth Troll. So I think Rest in Peace, probably a waste. I don't think Jonathan's going to be bringing that in. I am interested to see whether he brings in these 3 Legion Angels as a way of ending the game.
Well, you'd only bring in 2 then, or one of them, right? And then you go
Right.
get the other 2 out of the sideboard.
Actually,
and play them.
You know what? I probably should have checked this first. Jonathan already has the one in the main deck,
Nice.
so this is part of his plan to close the game as blue-white control is with Legion Angel.
An
Looking at-
interesting card, very
Yeah.
Squadron Hawk-esque.
Yeah, we have not seen much of that card in Pioneer. Jonathan seems to have been doing pretty well. Moving on to the rest of the sideboard, definitely going to see Dovin's Veto and Fateful Absence as good answers for Planeswalkers and Storm the Festival.
All right, both players here are drawing up their hands for game number 2. Sideboard it pretty quickly. They know that a draw here is pretty bad. They are trying to pick up a win. They just want to get to the top 8, and they want to do it cleanly. Here's turn 1 play from Corey B. It's just Oath of Nissa, no Elf. And Jonathan Fezemeyer on the play with just the tap Glacial Fortress. You got to be pretty happy about no Llanowar from the other side.
Right, and Kiora here, instead of either of the lands, and Corey is happy with the number of lands in his hand, absolutely. Jonathan now playing this Hall of Storm Giants, plenty of counter spells online for him now.
Okey-doke. We got a second layer of the Hydra for Corey, if he wants to go ahead and get that down, so it's not tapped later. I don't know that he has a play here for turn number 2.
Right, and this is an interesting spot. We did see that second layer of the Hydra. If Corey wanted to get that in untapped, it would have to be this turn, but that would mean Wolfwell Haven would be coming down on a non-basic land,
Right.
exposing it to Field of Ruin.
And there it is, Field of Ruin. So
Right.
good call from Corey B. Taking the Lair of the Hydra, clause seriously and choosing to play it tapped later on so that he's not vulnerable to this land.
Right.
No play for Fezemeyer after cycling the irrigated farmland, just the land number 3. Can't cast Absorb, but might have Dovin's Veto or something at the ready. And here's a Kiora Behemoth Beckoner from Corey B. Let's see if Fezemeyer wants to answer. Looks like it's resolving. Corey reaching for dice. No counterspells so far. He's going to untap the land. He can play Nykthos and then float 3 green, so he can play the Old Growth Troll because he has 3 Devotion with the Kiora, the Oath, and the Wolfwell Haven. So he turns that colorless into green.
And we see the mono green mana base is definitely one of the simpler mana bases in all of Magic, with really just these Lair of the Hydras, Besajus, and Nykthoses, but still some interesting play patterns here. Corey, without having another untapped green land, is forced to play this Nykthos out and expose it to the Field of Ruin before really being able to use it to get a mana boost. Definitely put himself in a bind with the Wolfwell Haven play, but it looks like Jonathan is going to allow him to untap with plenty of Nykthos mana.
Yeah, this is super dangerous because he's been essentially not having a counterspell ready for Kiora, Old Growth Troll, anything like that. Instead, just firing off a Fateful Absence on the instep on the Troll. And Corey here has access to Nykthos mana, mostly unfettered. He's going to draw a card here with Old Growth Troll if it resolves. And that's going to allow Kiora plus Nykthos to generate so much mana that I don't think a single counterspell can actually save Jonathan. So
Right.
let's see if Corey can overwhelm him here. And this is just turn 4.
And we might be seeing Jonathan trying to wait until Corey targets the Nykthos with this Kiora to try to get rid of that value with a Field of Ruin. But another point on these mana bases. We talked in Game 1 about Jonathan's mana base. We talked about Corey's mana base and the way he's playing around Field of Ruin. Jonathan had to play that Glacial Fortress tapped this turn.
Yeah.
If he has more 2-mana interaction in hand, if that were an untapped land, he would be able to activate the Field of Ruin and play that spell, but instead has to choose one or the other in this turn cycle.
All right, so every creature that Corey plays is replacing itself, and he has the ability to activate Nykthos afterwards, getting all these green pips. Not really that afraid of a sweeper because, again, it's all replacement effects and all drawing cards and blah, blah, blah. And now we're going down to 3 floating. We're going to draw a card, and with Nykthos active, we can make a boatload of mana and cast maybe multiple Storm the Festivals.
All right, 3,
Sheesh.
6, 9, 12, 15 mana for Corey, going up to 16.
I feel like a combo kill's coming. I feel like Fesmire put the shields down, just said, I got nothing.
Right. Let's see whether Corey wants to completely take advantage.
Okay, we got 16 mana. Maybe Corey's thinking about. There is one card that could really hose him here. It's I forgot the name of it, but it's like counter a spell and then exile all the spells with the same name. It's it only hits like instant sorceries. Test of Talent. Test
Right.
of Talent sometimes sees play in decks like Azorius control sideboards, and if he's thinking about it instead of casting Storm the Festival maybe wants to bait with other things like Karn the Great Creator instead. But here, just has basically every decision. It doesn't matter. He could cast things at random and win, I think.
Right. He just has so much mana, can afford to go into this one step at a time, and just, as he's assembling this combo kill, he's also accumulating value, and if Jonathan decides to stop him later than earlier, he's already accumulated that value. If Jonathan wants to start with the Karn, Corey can just say, okay, storm the festival instead. And in response to the Chain Veil, Jonathan is going to destroy, looks like, Kiora with Fateful Absence.
Okay. So only 4 mana floating. We're casting the Chain Veil. Chain Veil. Sorry. We have 8 mana floating with Chain Veil on the stack. If we have a Kiora in hand, we can play the Kiora, untap the Nykthos, make a boatload of mana, use Chain Veil, do it again, do it again, do it again. Use Karn a bunch, and maybe find the kill.
Alternatively, if Corey does have a Storm in hand, casting it here would leave 2 mana available, and then a Nykthos or a Kiora will allow Corey to keep going. Let's see what he can hit. Cavalier, also an option, and there's the Nykthos.
Cavalier and Nykthos. So we can go Nykthos replace, Cavalier trigger replace, and then with the Cavalier trigger on the stack, float with Nykthos. And then if he hits another Nykthos, he's just going wild.
Right. Even this first one is going to allow Corey to flashback storm the festival and probably activate the Chain Veil. I don't think there's much longer for Jonathan Fessemeyer in the 5-0 bracket.
All right, so good news for Fessemeyer, though, is that at 5-0, this loss isn't going to take him out of the tournament. But we'll see if Corey can actually close it out here. But with only 1 mana up for Fessemeyer, the shields are down, and Corey looks like he's going to be able to win this game thanks to Chain Veil, thanks to Restorative Burst, and the Karn the Great Creator package.
Corey counting up to 17 mana here off the Nykthos. And here goes the Cavalier. Just a forest.
Yeah, but these are going to go to the graveyard. That fills it up for the Restorative Burst, which once he activates Chain Veil, he can go get. And then that allows for Kiora, and that Kiora can activate twice. The first one for the Nykthos, the second one for the Chain Veil. And then you have enough mana to go Chain Veil, Chain Veil, Chain Veil.
Right.
The game's over.
Corey should be able to close this one out. Making sure it's clear. This is, in fact, an artifact. It's a Petulant Cauldron I'm getting, but what I really care about is Restorative Burst.
Okay, gonna cast it. Gonna get back Kiora and some other stuff. We're gonna cast the Kiora. We're gonna do some stuff, do some things.
And you're dead. 2 Kioras.
Yeah. Fessemeyer, what you want to do, Fessemeyer? You want to let him do it? You gonna make him do it? We got backup matches to get to. This is garbage time. Don't make me do this. Just for this, Fessemeyer, not on camera next round. Just gonna say it.
Fair enough. Yeah, sometimes I'll put it on the mono green player if you're going off without revealing the card, but everything's face up for Corey. Corey's got it locked up.
Yeah, he's literally just explaining, here's what I'm gonna do. It's infinity. Here's infinity. Yes!
There we go.
Fessemeyer packs it in.
Thank you.
Corey Baumeister moves to 5-1 and increases his position to top 8 this Pioneer Open 2K event with Mono Green Devotion, showing us what the green machine is all about. I know you got to be a big fan of watching one of the best players in the world play one of your favorite decks, Matt.
Absolutely. It's a great feeling, and I love watching Corey play, mostly in Modern, but, he's taking a step in my territory with Mono Green here.
Oh, don't want him stepping on your toes too much, though. You might have to give him a whipping.